Hello, everyone. I've got Amy back with me, and we are going to break down how you can change your beliefs. And I know many of you would like to change your relationship beliefs and your beliefs about your own self. So, hello to you, Amy.
Hi, everybody. Really excited to join you again, Agnes. And I
Uh,
think this is such a good topic.
yeah.
And I think it's really going to be helpful because I think we all know that the manifesting the general underlying message is that you've got to change your beliefs. And, if anybody's out there who, like me, was like, I haven't got a clue how to actually change a belief. I don't know even if I've changed a belief. How do you know when you've changed it? So hopefully we'll be able to cover all of that today.
Excellent. I think this is a really, really good topic because I do think a lot of people think, well, I'm stuck with this belief. It's just what I have. I got it from childhood. I know where it came from. And I keep getting the reoccurring external experience to validate my belief. So therefore, I feel like I'm stuck with it. But
Mm.
you and I both know you can change beliefs, and there are different ways to do it. So, what would you suggest with someone that believes that?
Well, I just want to start with what actually forms a belief in the first place, because then
Okay.
if you know what forms it, you can sort of reverse engineer
Mhm.
and start again and really embody a new belief. So when we understand that our beliefs aren't just on one level, so it's not something that just occurs in the mind. So it's just, say a belief starts with an idea that you then have to buy into and think, oh, okay, I've got evidence of this thought. And then what happens is we start to actually identify with that belief and embody that belief. So we then start acting as though that belief's true. And I suppose in terms of relationships, one of my biggest beliefs was that I am going to be abandoned. That
Mm.
was a belief that I had. And, nobody could have told me that that wasn't true. I'd got so much evidence that that was happening. And,
Yeah.
like you say, you get stuck in the loop of you believe this thought, the outside world reflects it. And then you think, see, I was right. And it then sort of just reaffirms again what you don't want. So let's take that belief as I am going to be abandoned. So I had the thought of, oh, I'm going to be abandoned, which comes from childhood,
Mm.
not with physical abandonments, but regular emotional abandonment. So you got to remember with your beliefs, I mean, this one is an example, it's a perceived abandonment. So it doesn't matter if somebody's actually left you, it's
Mm.
what your perception of the situation is that gave birth to this belief in the first place. So the belief that I'm going to be abandoned. And then I started to act that way towards my partner and then started treating him like he was going to abandon me. Then he did. And then it just reaffirmed the belief over and over again, which is the loop that you were talking about. So you've got the feedback loop all of the time.
Yeah.
So, how do you sort of break that pattern? And I know in the manifesting world, that a lot of people believe in robotic affirming or robotic visualizing, which makes the changes up here, but it doesn't actually bring it into your body. You can't embody something that you don't believe. You can't think
Mm.
your way into a different state. It starts here, but it's the embodiment that actually causes the shifts. So by
Mm.
embodiment, what I mean is that your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your actions align. So let's say, for example, you're affirming, I'm love wanted and cherished, but actually you're behaving as someone who's going to get left. That's not going to make the changes that you want on the outside. To actually embody a belief, you've got to sort of wake up as that person. How do I get out of bed as the person who is loved, wanted, and cherished? You can't think one thing and act the opposite because you're just
Mm.
reaffirming again what you don't want.
Yeah.
So when you're changing your belief patterns, a really big thing that's missed in the manifesting community that I've personally noticed is the embodiment of it. There's a lot of robotic affirming, but there's not much of this is how you actually embody a new belief. And to embody a new belief, as Neville said, it's wearing the cloak of the person that believes that thing. So it's a question of asking yourself, who would I be if I believed what I wanted to believe? Who would I be if I was loved, wanted, and cherished? What would my life look like? What wouldn't I be doing if I was loved, wanted, and cherished? And really breaking the pattern down so that you can actually start noticing, like, for example, if you're affirming you're loved, wanted, and cherished, but constantly checking the phone to see if someone's texted you, your actions aren't in alignment with what it is that you want to believe. So yeah, that's really what how a belief is made and how you change it. So how you will change that is, right, okay, somebody who is loved, wanted, respected, adored, does not check the phone to see if someone's texted them. So I'm going to leave the phone alone today and really start embodying this belief that I want.
Yes. It's echoing the change externally, and it's walking around in the new. I mean, Neville talks about the old man. It's you've got to stop walking around and acting like the old man. You've got to give up those, and they are often repetitive, habitual, addictive habits that we've accumulated from having abandonment back there in childhood. So yeah, it's a good thing when you realize, firstly, oh my goodness, a belief can be changed, and you can teach an old dog new tricks, like you can actually learn to change the mental state, but then the emotional and the physical presence that goes with it. It is not just the mental, the emotional. You're not going to walk around like this if you feel loved and happy. You're going to have a stance and a presence that reverberates that you are feeling, the new state. So I think it's good we're talking about this, because beliefs are so powered by our childhoods. They're so powered by, until we become conscious and know that we don't have to just believe what our childhood tells us, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I'm going to be abandoned, my perceived abandonment. I've got a fear of loss, a fear of abandonment, fear of loss, fear of abandonment. And then me doing that, it starts to put the wheels in motion. So it's not that you were going to be abandoned, it's that you focused on being abandoned, believed that you would be abandoned, and then the vibrational match, as Esther Hicks says, came and showed you the evidence. So it is changeable. I mean, Esther always says a belief is just a thought you keep thinking, but I would say a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking and a feeling you keep having. That would be the expanded version. And I mean, you've overcome abandonment, I've overcome abandonment. We both have that in our childhoods. And we both know that my childhood doesn't have to dictate who I am today and how I act, but I need to go and clear the old, and I need to reprogram myself as the adult in me needs to take care of the child in me. So, yeah. And that's different time frames for different people. I can hear the question, how long is that going to take me?
But the thing is, if you are really intending on breaking this belief, then it doesn't necessarily have to take you that long at all. The reason why sometimes it's hard to break a belief is because in some way the belief that you don't want serves you in some way. So let's take again that I'm going to be abandoned belief. That actually protects you from an awful lot of stuff. It protects you from having to be vulnerable, for example, with somebody. So if it is that you're finding it particularly hard to shift a belief, really look at, how is this belief serving me? How do I think it's making life easier for me, for example? And it might be, like I say, it might be that, oh, it's protecting me from having to be vulnerable. It's actually protecting me from being rejected. Or, it's serving you in some way. Might not be consciously, it might be something that you have to sit with, but if you can intentionally think to yourself, no, this is the belief that I want, this is how I'm going to reaffirm this belief within myself, and then before long you will start seeing evidence of it. And when you can start to build that evidence and start to trust this new belief, the other belief will just dissolve anyway. And but like I say, it's easier said than done, particularly with these big beliefs that you've had for a long time. I mean, if you want to test it on something smaller.
Yes.
And, you know, really start to question, is this actually true?
Yeah.
And, you know, is it something that, you know, I was told, that I just took on, that I bought into and believed?
Yeah.
And, you know, start looking for evidence that is against that. Start looking at evidence that actually puts that belief into question, and start to see life through a different lens. Because as you say, most of your beliefs come from your childhood, and we go around with the lens of trauma, pasting what's happened in the past onto what's happening now. And as you said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you start attracting people who are going to abandon you, or you start attracting people who you can't trust and start treating them like they're going to abandon you.
Yeah.
But so your belief system has to marry up. It's not just about what's going on in your head, it's about how you actually bring that into the body, and start getting into the feeling space of the person that believes that, because a belief is only ever really formed. It's thought plus feeling equals belief.
Yes.
And it really is as simple as that. It's thought plus feeling equals belief. And you can reverse that.
Yes. Yes. It's so good when you realize I don't have to be stuck with something forever. I remember I had the I'm second best belief for so long. I remember saying to a friend, you know what, it doesn't matter how much Neville I do, how much manifesting, visualizing, getting into a state of love, maybe I'm stuck with this I'm second best forever. And I was about 15 years into doing this work when I was saying that. So you can really believe your own beliefs are set in concrete and that you're doomed. You really can. I mean, that was very disturbing for me when I just kept attracting a third party, and thinking, you know, I know that not all men cheat, but yet I keep getting the evidence that they do. And maybe all these other women were right, that all men cheat, and then the history kicks in, all the conversations with women complaining about men and making them, you know, demonizing them, and all of that would come back. And I'd think, well, I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that there are good men. I want to believe that there are men where I don't experience the I'm second best. And, you know, and you said something at the beginning, how do I know a belief has changed? For me, when the evidence no longer reveals itself on the outside. That's what I would say. What would you say?
I would go a bit before that and think that I react differently to the same scenario. That's how I know I'm breaking it. If the same thing shows up and I don't really care, I know that something's shifting. If I know that I don't care about it anymore. And you know, I have this with third parties as well, where my insecurities were being reflected back to me in third parties. And you know, in the end, because I'd done the work, in the end I just didn't care anymore. I just thought, okay.
I know.
It wasn't personal anymore. I thought it was, oh, it's personal. It's something. It's something to do with me. It's me that's defective. It's me that's not good enough. But actually, as I started healing that, the idea of the third party would come into my head, and like, no, it's fine. They're not a patch on me.
I love the expression. Oh well, you get to the point where you're so detached from it that you almost go, I can't believe that I'm at that point, because I remember when this used to destroy me for
Mm,
weeks, destroy me. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. And it was even just the perceived thought of a third party,
mm,
because someone had said hello to your partner when you were walking down the street, and then you're thinking about that woman, thinking about that woman, thinking about
yeah,
that. I mean, the self torture is horrendous, and thinking you're
absolutely.
better than you in some way.
Exactly, and it makes you uncomfortable about your partner going out, and it's not their fault.
Yes,
And
yes,
part of you knows that you're being unreasonable, but the fear takes over. So we react to that fear or the thought. We react to
yeah,
that by thinking, oh no, I don't want them to go out. So then you act clingy and desperate,
yes,
and then it pushes them further and further
yeah,
away
yes.
until they become exhausted and think, well, actually, somebody
Mm.
else is probably better for me than you
Yes,
are.
yes, that's so true. I'd
And
forgotten
then,
about that one, Amy. I'd forgotten
mm,
about having the fear when my partner used to go out. That it's so nice to just go, oh, wow, that isn't even in my consciousness anymore. I haven't even thought about that for years, but it was such a big part of my life. And obviously you've mentioned it because you've experienced it as well. It's the anxiety that that gives you is
exactly, I
really
wouldn't sleep. I
Yes,
wouldn't
and you'd
sleep.
be waiting for them to come back, and then, if you weren't living together, "Oh, I'm not coming back. I've gone back to my place," and you're thinking, "Oh, did you go back there alone, or did you take someone with
Mm,
you?" And then you traumatize yourself until sunrise. It's,
exactly. And that was a continuing pattern where I wouldn't sleep and I'd be glued to the phone for
yeah,
waiting for a message. And like you say, it's torture. And
yeah,
I don't, anybody who's going through that, I feel you, because it in your mind, that you can't believe that this is the effect it's having on you, but you can't help it either.
yes,
And it puts you
yes,
in that really, really uncomfortable place, but it's fixable.
mm,
It is fixable. And,
yeah,
if it is that you feel triggered with your partner or, with the SP or whoever it is, what I would do is encourage you to actually sit with the trigger, put the phone
mm,
away and get a notepad and think, right,
yeah,
okay, what am I thinking about this situation? And
yeah,
actually get it down on paper, get your thoughts down so that when you're triggered, these are the thoughts that I think about this situation,
yeah,
and get to the bottom of why it is that it's having that reaction. So, like you say, I'm second best, or,
yeah,
I'm insecure, I'm not good enough, and
yeah,
really start to target those beliefs in a
yeah,
way that, make it easy for yourself and
mm,
think, right, okay, this is the belief that I've got. First of all, just accept that that's what you believe right now.
yeah,
Accept that, okay, I don't feel like I'm good enough. We don't want to get into resistance to the belief that you've actually got.
yes,
And then think, okay, what do I want? Okay, I want to feel secure. I want to feel first best. I want to feel like, I want to feel adored. I want to feel loved, wanted, whatever it is that you want to feel.
yeah,
And think about, who would you be if you believed those things? So it's not about denying who you're being right now. It's not about that. It's
mm,
about acknowledging, okay, this is how I feel and this is why, but I want to believe this because it
yeah,
feels better to believe
mm,
that. At the very least, it feels better. And start to think about, how would that version of me handle this situation? So my partner's gone out, they haven't texted me yet. How does that version of me, who is loved, wanted, secure, how do they respond to this?
mm,
Well, they'd just be having a morning to themselves.
yeah,
They'd put the phone away. They'd
yeah,
know that this person is going to get back to them. And I'm not saying at the beginning it's going to be easy, because it isn't. It's you got to just move the needle. That's all you've got to
yeah,
do. Move the needle every single time, just better and
yeah,
better and better every single time.
yeah.
And start there and make it easy for yourself.
For sure. Self-acceptance at that moment, and then not knee-jerk reacting into, the phone in any way. And also, I think, like, I find those moments when I look back was the time when I processed a lot of my emotions, because it would hit me so deeply in the raw pink nerve of abandonment, even though it might not have been happening. I was able to offload all the when people would poke me in the raw pink nerve, I would use those moments to allow my old abandonment to surface. And in those days, I was doing that quite a lot because there was a lot of stuff there and it was accumulated. And then there was hurt and a lot of anger on top of it. So it's like when you get an opportunity where someone hits you in that spot, if you can allow yourself to offload those emotions, if you're alone, or if you're not alone, do it as soon as you can. When you are alone, I think that is the roadmap to no longer being triggered in the here and now, because there's nothing in there to trigger. You eventually keep the, I mean, I don't have that. I can't even remember the last time I had that. That's how long ago it was. Now, would I ever say I'll never have it again? No. All you got to do is say that'll never happen to me again, and you'll have another humbling moment at some point. So I don't think that it can never happen to me again, but the frequency from it happening every single week to then it would be once every few months to then once or twice a year to then it not happening anymore, it's a real decrease over time, which is profound when you know you have felt that stuff so much and you have been emotionally up and down on the roller coaster with it affecting you while you're trying to go to work, taking days off work, and you're not sick, you're emotionally just wiped out. And you have a much smoother time the more you let it out, the emotion, the old original emotion. Then the person cannot contact you back, and you've, like you said, you've put your phone down. You might be cooking, having a shower, dyeing your hair, and then all of a sudden you check your phone and they've contacted you two or three times, like, where are you? That's the shift that can occur, because you're no longer sitting there fixated on that thing that you think is going to remove your abandonment. They didn't cause it, they can't cure it, as they say. This is old and it is up to us to clear it. And we really, really can, through the self-love work, through doing the abandonment work, through doing, like you say, writing when you're in the middle of it. I think even things like body work, getting certain types of massage so that it releases emotions. It's not uncommon that when you're having a massage, that emotions come up. So, and there's emotional release masseuses as well that do specifically that kind of work. So all of these things, I think over the years, they free you up from your own self more and more and more, to the point where you live in that 10% instead of it happening to you 90%. You live in the 10% of it happening. And then even if it does happen, you just know how to shift it pretty quickly. And you might be stuck there for 2 or 3 hours, not 2 or 3 weeks.
Exactly. And I think, you know, what you mentioned about the sort of self-love and how that marries into it, really, when you're practicing self-love, you are learning to be there for yourself, because the abandonment wound is, as you say, because you're focusing on an outside source to relieve that fear of abandonment, when really, you know, what you really want is to be there for yourself. Because when you can learn to be there for yourself, the outside world abandoning you doesn't have the same trigger. And you know, when it is that you're feeling abandoned and you are super focused on the other person, you are abandoning yourself, because you are taking your attention away from you onto them. They're the most important, they're the ones that matter, they're the ones that are, you know, they're the ones that I want, instead of sitting back, relax, and thinking, how can I show up for myself in this moment right now? Okay, I'm going to listen to what I've got to say about it. I'm going to feel the emotion that comes up with it. I'm going to really be there and do what you want the other person to do, because what you want the other person to do is to listen to you. You want the other person to show up for you. Everything that you want the other person to do, learn how to actually give that to yourself. And you won't need it from the other person then. And then
Yeah.
because you don't need it, they start showing up
That's
as the
it.
way that you know, as that, because you're
Mm,
fulfilling your own need. But in
that's
terms of
it.
sort of changing a belief on the feeling level, because this, I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. They understand how to mentally change a belief,
Yes.
but you know, when it is the feeling's still there, the nervous system's still activated, and you know, this boils down to really having a method to really stabilize your own emotions and how to self-soothe. And you know, a really good technique that I learned for this, and I mean, I used to feel anxiety, I would say around 80% of the time in
Yeah.
general,
Mm.
and I would always have this knot in my stomach. I'd always, like, my shoulders were up by my ears, and
Yes.
I had to learn to regulate that, because I mean, I'd had it for so long I didn't even notice it anymore. And
Yes.
it was only really when I paid attention to my body and I noticed how tense I was.
Yeah.
And I would imagine sort of an actual physical knot, like a rope in my stomach. And I would imagine the rope untying, and I would
Mm.
notice how my stomach would, you know, relax automatically. And I'd notice how my shoulders would drop and how much calmer I felt. I practiced breathing techniques. Breath works are really good
Mm.
technique to use for emotional regulation. But when you
Yes.
can have a really good practice to actually regulate your emotions so you're not so reactive, then you're going to have a really easy time to change a belief. Because for me, in my opinion, what happens in your mind is surface level. Your beliefs go way, way, way beyond surface level. Your beliefs are in your body, and
Mm.
your body will react to it. So if you can learn how to regulate the best you can, you haven't got to
Mm.
be perfect at this, because you know, with the best will in the world, we all react to stuff.
Yes.
You know, before we're even aware of it, we've reacted to it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're always reacting from our feelings, but if we can learn a practice that actually helps us not be so reactive and not to feed into this feedback loop,
Mm.
and learn to actually take a beat and put some distance in between yourself and the trigger and think, right, okay, how am I feeling? Where can I feel it in my body? What do I think is going to release this feeling? Well, I'll go for a nice bath, for example. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. That'll calm me down. And really think of really healthy ways that you can start to really relax and
Yeah.
let the emotion pass through. Because when you can do that and when you can observe it, you will notice that your emotions don't last long at
Yeah.
all. They don't last long. And, you
Yeah.
know, you feel it, you can move on from it, and you can start to think a lot clearer then. And then you'll start to think, actually, you know, the likelihood of him going home with someone else is quite slim. And
Yeah.
of course, he's going to message me. And you'll
Yeah.
start to see, I suppose, the truth of the situation rather than acting from your emotions.
Yeah. That's yes. And it is once you've done it half a dozen times, it starts to give you this self-assuredness that you know how to move through it rather than just getting on the phone and texting from that place of anxiety and fear. And then they get really turned off by you because they're trying to go out with their friends, and then their phone keeps beeping and you're intruding on their time, and you're trying it to them. It's like you're trying to control them and they don't like it. So I think when we can um, arrest those behaviors, pull yourself in, deal with your own self, and put into practice some of these skills. Oh, the Andrew breathing technique, I'll put the link down below because that's excellent for when you get those intense impulses to do something and you know you probably shouldn't do it, but you're on the verge of doing it. The Andrew breathing technique is fantastic. I will put the video from the guy that talks about it's a short video how to do it, and it's very good. It's such a great way to deal with these types of I've got a third party scenario running in my head even though it might not be happening. It's good for those. It's good for anxiety. It's good when you feel incredible stress and you feel like that, like you said, where your shoulders are up around your neck, and the guy takes you through a couple of rounds of it so you can follow him, and it is so good. It's really good to do before meditation too. It prepares you and gets you into the state. So Yeah, and it's not complicated, it's not hard, and it's doing these things to help ourselves. And like you said, you don't have to do it perfectly, and you probably won't, but in the end, you get, just like when you learnt to ride a bike and you couldn't, kept falling over, eventually you start riding and you're wobbling, but you're able to stay up on your bike. This is the same. You will be able to not engage in your addictive behavior to try and get them to come back and make you feel the absence of your abandonment. You will be able to just move through your evening while they're out and be able to do these wonderful things. And when they come back, they see you're happy to see them, and you're not in a state of, oh, why didn't you come home, all that stuff
Hands
that
on
people
hip.
do. Yeah, the hands on hips, exactly. Which is, someone goes out and has a good night and then they come home to that, or they see that the next day. It's like they're gonna really get pretty tired of that pretty quickly. So
Exactly.
yeah, being dignified and being just in that, I have a soft open hand, you come and go as you please, you do the things you need to do. When you do that, men want to be with you because there's so few people that do that and can be consistent with it. So I think it's really good to be in that group of women that know how to. It is one of the most attractive things from a man's point of view, a woman who doesn't
Exactly.
do that stuff.
And I think, modern dating advice has perhaps got a lot to answer for as well, because, I bought into modern dating advice, but really it's manipulation.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article many, many, many years ago about texting, and that I should only text him 30% of the time. And it's game playing, and
Mhm.
people can spot it from a mile off. Men are not stupid,
Yes,
and women
yes.
aren't stupid either. And they can spot that from a mile off, when really what you really want is a strong interdependent relationship where no one's chasing anybody, no one's pursuing, and
Yeah.
you come together rather than a chaser and one being pursued. You come together and you work
Yes,
through problems together, and there isn't this game playing, there isn't this having to micromanage every part of the relationship anymore, because it's exhausting,
it
really
really is.
exhausting. And as you say, I mean, my relationship certainly improved when I started to just let go, just do what you want to do,
Mm,
and I'll do what I want to do, because that's my responsibility. My
mhm.
happiness is my responsibility.
Yeah.
And take responsibility for your own joy and happiness, because,
Mm,
if it is that you are making that person responsible, how much pressure is that?
yeah.
But when you can start to actually prioritize your own happiness and your own well-being, they
Yeah.
will start to prioritize it as well.
That's
And
it.
that's how this works. And then you'll start to see evidence that things are shifting and things are changing. And that time period when you start to change a belief and you're not seeing evidence of it, I get that it's so disheartening when you're working hard and nothing's being shown back to you. Just keep at
Mm,
it, commit to it, because and your patience will pay off.
yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, you and I are examples of that. You can have all that and you can break free and you're not stuck in it forever. You're not. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, 70s even, it doesn't matter. It's you, once you know what needs to be done and you get on to doing it, it starts to diminish over time. It just does. And it is I think, the most freeing emotional work you can do.
It is. And a lot of what I notice is that, people are saying, oh, but I'm doing all this work and I'm not changing the beliefs. Take responsibility. And are you actually doing it, or are you just watching YouTubes on how to do it? Are you
Yes, good point.
actually,
Mm,
are you actually doing the
yeah.
what you're being taught to do? And that was something I did. I felt like I was working really hard, but all I was doing was researching more, and, you know, listening to more without actually, you know,
Yeah.
taking the leap and actually doing it. And I wasn't seeing evidence of it because I wasn't really doing the work.
Yeah, listening to the information and applying it to your situation and your abandonment and your anxiety and fear of loss, I think it is totally different, because the emotions need to come up and out. They need to come up and out. And that is, it's just, you keep doing it until you feel like there's not much left or there isn't anything left. And then, you know, maybe in some scenario it might come up, but the voltage of it is like a 2 out of 10 instead of a 9.5. You're able to see that it's happening. You go, oh, that's interesting. I can feel a bit of something there, but oh, well, it's not that much. Let me just, you know, sit quietly, let it pass. And then you don't even need to say anything to anyone about it. It's just
No.
a self-observation, and that becomes, I mean, that's when it's really just, you feel really good about yourself because you've got some self-control. Because when your abandonment is high on the Richter scale, you don't have self-control. It just blurts out all the stuff, and the, you know, blowing up people's phones or texting too much, and then people start getting angry at you because of your behavior, and then you get ghosted, then you get blocked, and all these, you know, extremely unpleasant things that no one wants from someone that they really love and want to be with. That stuff's very hurtful, but it is all correctable. It is all, you're able to process it and get rid of it and not carry it around for the rest of your life. You really can.
And just one final tip before we wrap up, it's well worth remembering, even when you're in these moments, like you say, when it's a 9.5 out of 10, it's just worth remembering that not everything you think is true.
Yes.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
everything you think is true.
Yeah.
And, you know, in fact, I would bet on, you know, the at least 80% of your beliefs aren't true.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah. And I think when you can remember that, it sort of waters it down automatically when you can remember that actually, you know, 80% of what I believe actually is true.
Yeah.
And it's enough sometimes to break the focus on it and start to think, right, okay, let me dig into this and let me try and heal this and shift it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amy. I think that's a good little breaking down of how the mechanics of all this works. I will put down below anything that you send me on beliefs. I will also put my own beliefs playlist, and I will put all the interviews that you and I have done on all sorts of different topics, because there's a separate playlist for that now. And yeah, anyone that's going through this, let us know your comments. Let us know where you're up to with this. Let us know if you're actually moving through the process of allowing the old emotions to be released. Are you finding that it's making some headway in when something happens today? Are you feeling the voltage is less? Where are you at? How are you going with it? Let Amy and I know down below in the thread. So you want to say bye to everyone, Amy?
Yes, thank you for having me. And as always, it's a pleasure. And I shall see everybody soon.
Wonderful. Bye, everyone. We hope that that gives you a bit of relief and that it makes your relationships, whether it's a new relationship or a specific person or an ex, whoever it is that you are engaging with, that it makes your relationship journey a little bit easier. Lots of love, and Amy and I will both see you on YouTube.